Hey girl, what you doing? Listening to the Be Everything and More podcast, baby. Let's fucking go. Welcome back to another episode of Be Everything and More. I'm so excited to take a little bit of a different approach with you this week. The first 3 episodes have been like straight up fire, hype woman, let's fucking go energy. And honestly, I'm just not in that mood right now. And so I wanted to take a little bit of a different angle. And I think a lot of this was inspired by back to school, if I'm being honest. If you have kids of any age, you're probably in the same kind of mode that I am of just like new routines, getting readjusted to pickups and drop-offs and having lunches and backpacks. And I don't know, if you have teenagers, maybe they're doing all that themselves, but then it's like getting them out of bed and all of the things. And all of a sudden, like we just have this entire new thing that we have to get adjusted to. But besides all of the traditional back to school rush, I also have this additional emotion that's been coming up for me this week. And it's been really beautiful as a mom to see my daughter so joyful starting the 3rd grade. And I know that might seem weird thinking, isn't every kid kind of like happy and excited to go back to school and see their friends? And that just wasn't the case for our household. It was the summer of 2024, so she was finishing 2nd grade. And she had missed a lot of the year. It was constant fights about not wanting to go to school. And we decided to look into some extended evaluation, like looking at different aspects of what could be causing this internal angst and struggle within her to not want to go to school. Because every time she was asked, we're like, is there a bully at school? Do you just not like school? Do you not like your teachers? And she's like, no, I love school. I love my friends. And at school, she wasn't having behavior issues or anything like she was at home. So I just was like, something isn't right. My mom intuition just felt like we needed to look at this deeper. And so this entire last year has been dedicated to getting her support and looking at different triggers, her emotional regulation. And what it all boiled down to is we officially got the diagnosis that she has PDA. PDA stands for Pathological Demand Avoidance, which is under like the autism umbrella. But it's actually kind of confusing because it doesn't have the typical, and I use typical because autism doesn't look a certain way all the time. But when I say typical, meaning how they diagnose autism, PDA doesn't show up in the same way. And so it's really nuanced and difficult to detect specifically in young girls. And so after lots of testing, lots of evaluations, we were exposed to the word PDA. And after diving deep into PDA, I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. I finally feel like I have something, right? A solution in a lens to be able to look at what my daughter is experiencing. And for those of you that don't know what PDA feels or looks like, basically it's every time you are given a demand, even if it's as simple as like tie your shoe, grab your backpack, get in the car, right? All the common things we're constantly telling our kids, it puts the body into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And for my daughter, it was a lot of fight. It was a lot of rambunctiousness in the household. It was a lot of chaos. And I'll be honest, it like really threw off a lot of my nervous system. So at the same time that we were going through this diagnosis and we were all working together as a unit between my partner, my ex-husband, grandparents, aunts, uncles to like really rally around her and support her and give her what she needs. The Beam Life was also like starting to finally take off after 5 years of putting in blood, sweat, tears. So I was having this push-pull energy, I guess is the only way I can describe it. And I was feeling very stressed because I was like, okay, in order to get my daughter the support she needs, I really need to be available. I need to be available intensely more than ever before, not just with time, but with presence. And I can't do that if I'm thinking about constantly what content I'm going to put out, what email I'm going to send out, what an offer looks like, client reminders, all of those things. And also, I have to mention, like, I was also learning about PDA. This was very new to me. And in the US, there's not a lot of information about it. And so this was all going on. This was literally all of last year. And PDA and going through this whole process with my daughter has actually taught me something so profound about being an entrepreneur. And it's actually inspired this new offer, this new experience that I'm creating. And I want to go explain a little bit more how that came to be. PDA requires you to throw out the entire rule book of what you thought parenting would look like. Like the way we were raised by our parents in the 90s does not work for a kid with PDA. Okay, like this, you're going to respect me, you're going to listen to me. I said no. Like that actually feels like death to someone with PDA. And it doesn't work. It makes things worse. And so I had to learn how to completely parent differently than what was modeled for me, than what any books were saying. Because up until this point, I felt like I had read every parenting book, I had read every parenting podcast, and everything was for like traditional kids that misbehave. But I was like, my kid's not misbehaving. This is different. And I promise this relates to business. There's a reason I'm telling you all of this, because sometimes growing our business requires us to throw out the rule book. I'm willing to just place a bet right now that if you like this podcast and you resonate with a lot of the things that I say, you're probably at a stage in your business where you've thought, okay, I've invested in this course. I have paid for this coaching. I have, downloaded all of the must-dos and I keep checking the boxes. And maybe your business has made a little progress, maybe you're plateaued, but it's just not feeling good. And the reason we go into business for ourselves is to feel good, isn't it? Right? It's to have freedom. It's to have the ability to be present with our family and our kids and our loved ones and all of the things. We didn't go into it to be miserable. And so, what if the solution was actually throwing out the rule book? And I know that might sound a little scary, right? Because you're like, Caitlin, I've already invested in these things. I've already done those things. And I'm not saying that those things don't work. You absolutely need logic and strategy in business. I would be crazy to tell you otherwise. But that stuff is irrelevant if you don't have some other very key foundational things. And going through this whole experience with my daughter over the last year made me realize that I needed to build, even like double down on some of these foundational things that I thought I had, but I needed to develop them more. And so I have spent the last year really identifying what are these things that, even though I was going through all of this, like the Beam Life not only survived, but thrived. 2024 was the best year in the Beam Life. And I don't think that that's by accident. It really required me to expand, to discover new things, to look at things differently and figure out what in my business was important. What did I need to actually focus on? What did I need to delegate? But more importantly, how did I need to take care of myself? One of the biggest things, the number one thing, if I look back and I'm like, okay, can I dissolve all of this down to one thing? What would it be? And it would be boundaries. And I don't just mean, oh, I'm going to tell you no and helping you do this thing for the bake sale at school. I mean, it's the boundaries and the commitments that you've set for yourself. When you say you're going to work, you need to actually use that time to work on the thing you said you were going to do. When you set aside time to say, this is designated time to be with my family, to go on vacation, you need to be on vacation. You need to be present with your family. If it's dedicated time that you said, I'm going to use this time in the morning to get up and work out, you need to use that time to get up and work out, not get up and scroll and check emails. No, babe, that was not what you said you were going to do during that time. People mistake boundaries a lot for the things and the commitments we have with other people, but they miss the commitments they have with themselves. And that is ultimately what I look at everything this last year, how I was able to not only take my business into the next level and my clients, but also profoundly connect with my daughter on a really deep level. It comes down to boundaries. Boundaries is also the number one and first thing we're going to look at in this 10-day activation I'm creating called She's the Strategy. Because at the end of the day, it's not about anything else but you, because you are the strategy. You are the framework. You are the solution. And if you're not working, your business isn't going to be either. It doesn't matter how much you know. And so I just have witnessed a lot of coaches that tell you how, but they don't take into consideration the other things you might be dealing with. An instance for me, it was dealing with a kid with PDA. Maybe for you, it's a crumbling relationship, financial pressure, broken relationships with family members. Maybe you're getting married, right? Like sometimes things that happen in our life aren't negative. They can also be joyful things. And so maybe you're having a baby. These can all be life-changing things that unless we have some of these really core things, I want to share like top things that come to mind. It's like, how are we showing up literally physically dressed? Are we showing up as the part, or are we trying to do things in our pajamas at 2 p.m.? How are we setting the boundaries? I've already talked about that one. How are we in relationships with people? Those are only a few of the things that we're going to dive into. But if this conversation resonates with you, and you don't just, again, have to be taking care of someone in order to relate to this. All of you have other demands that are pulling you away from your business, and it's maybe causing some internal frustration because all you want to be able to do is grow this dream of yours, and you deserve to do that. But you have to remember that you are the solution to that. And that's empowering because when you figure out that you're the solution, you can actually make a change. And so I know that if you're relating to this, I want you to get down to the show notes and join the waitlist for the Beam Life membership, which is where we work on all these foundational things that I've been sharing with you. And more importantly, when the doors open to the Beam Life membership on September 1st, you are going to get free access to my 10-day activation, She's the Strategy, which is daily mini trainings, if you will, that you're going to get that break down each one of these foundational things that I discovered over the last year that are going to catapult your business to the next level. And none of them have to do with email, content, using Notion, hiring a team. Like nothing has to do with that. It all has to do with you because you are ultimately the strategy, babe. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, review, all of the things. And most importantly, I'll see you back here next week. Love you big.